What's up, guys? I'm EJ. I'm joined by Kendall, and thank you all for checking out this video we're doing on the NBA draft. Here we're going to be talking about the class of 2020 sleepers. Kendall, the more research I do in this class, I really feel like it's a very deep class with a lot of talent, and I think you'll be able to find players late in the first round and even in the second round that may come in and maybe not necessarily in year one, but throughout the course of the career turn out to be really solid pros. So I know me and you have a list of guys that we think could be sleepers in this draft, and they're very excited to talk about them.
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about finding draft sleepers, that's always, every year that becomes the big question or the big thing because there's always somebody every year, whether it's this year Emmanuel Quickly and Tyrese Maxey and Peyton Pritchard at the end of the first round this year, or we've seen years past guys like Kyle Kuzma and or even guys sometimes in the lottery that people slept on, like a guy like Donovan Mitchell. Sleepers, Robert Williams. We saw what he did this year for the Celtics, being an end of the first round guy. Gary Trent was a second round pick, in Portland. So
Yeah.
guys, I mean, you can find a lot of really quality players. Of course, the MVP of the league, Nikola Jokic, was a second round pick. So you could find a lot of quality players outside of the lottery, and that's what teams are trying to find is the best value picks as possible in this NBA draft.
Absolutely, yeah. It's the teams that are drafting at the top. Obviously, they feel like you got the best chance to get a franchise-changing player, but every pick matters. So, when it comes
Yeah,
to whether it be the first pick or the 60th pick,
and
you want to try to maximize potential because there's talent all across the board. We've seen guys go way late in the second round that turn out to be Hall of Famers, like Montu Ginobili, who's eventually going to be a Hall of Famer. So it's just
and these guys are more likely to be playing on playoff teams because
yeah,
most of the guys we're talking about are be guys drafted in the end of the first round or second round, which could be
right.
anywhere in the draft. So yeah, I mean these are going to be guys that could be contributing in the playoffs in ways that we've seen guys like Tyrese Maxey and Emmanuel Quickly do.
Exactly. So let's start with our guys, and I'll go first. The first guy I want to talk about is Chris Duarte, shooting guard from Oregon. Kendall, I know he's an older player. He's 23. He'll be 24 by the time the NBA season rolls around. And I think that's why you haven't seen his name talked about among the better players and being talked about in the lottery. But Duarte, to me, is one of the best offensive players in the NBA draft, and especially in terms of his scoring. I have advanced statistics for you, Kendall. He ranks 90 in the 95th percentile in overall offense, 91st percentile in pick and roll offense, 94th percentile in spot up shooting, where he shot a 47% field goal percentage on catch and shoot, which was 95th percentile. I mean, we're talking about elite numbers on the college level from Chris Duarte. And when you watch the film, it translates. He has a stellar shooting stroke. He can shoot off the dribble with regularity. He had also one of the best off the dribble numbers and efficiency this year. And he's a underrated finisher. He shot the ball around 62, 63% on finishes around the basket that weren't post ups. So his offensive game is pretty put together. He's not necessarily the greatest athlete. He's a pretty good athlete. And he's not necessarily a guy that's gonna blow by you, but he's very crafty. He's good with fakes when he gets into the paint, and he's just efficient, man. I mean, the NBA is about guys who can come in and get buckets, and finding guys who can just hoop. Chris Duarte can hoop. I don't know where he's gonna go, but I think there's a great case to be made that he's definitely a top 20 player in terms of just talent. The AIDS thing may be reason he's not drafted higher, but Duarte is an excellent player, and I think anybody who gets him is going to be getting a guy who can play next year.
Yeah, I mean, there's rumors that you're talking about a player that could have maybe gotten a draft promise, considering he declined his invite to the NBA draft combine, which isn't surprising because I could see a team that's a postseason team feeling like, given his timeline, he's going to be 24 years old. He's a win now, ready, NBA ready kind of prospect. At least he needs to be. But shooting is so valuable nowadays, and he has a lot of shot versatility. So yeah, I mean, obviously Chris Duarte is somebody that I agree. I mean, I think he's going to be a very good NBA player. Um, a guy for me that I'll start off with. I'll start with Austin Reaves, guard out of Oklahoma. You talk about age. He's another one. He's 22 years old. Um, and obviously, I think what we've seen now in the last couple of years has been that veteran, especially at guard, especially at the guard spot, veteran college guards at the end of the first round tend to succeed more than your one and done or two and done guys that drop. As we saw with someone like Tyrell Terry struggling, as opposed to guys like Quickly or a guy like Peyton Pritchard or Malachi Flynn. So yeah, I mean, I think Austin Reaves, when you talk about what his role is going to be at the next level, I think as a second unit, initiator, scorer, a guy who's really high level in pick and roll, can score in isolation situations, has a very advanced and mature skill set. You wish that he would be a better, he would have shot a higher percentage from three this past season. And you have questions about what is his role going to be in the NBA. He's not going to have the usage that he had at Oklahoma the last couple of years. But what I look back to with Austin Reaves is not even his time just at Oklahoma, but people forget, obviously, he transferred from Wichita State. And at Wichita State, Greg Marshall had played him more so like a spot-up shooter. He didn't have the ball in his hands, and he shot better percentages at Wichita State than he did at Oklahoma. His shooting dipped a little bit when he got to OU, but I think the degree of difficulty on his shots didn't help his percentages. But I think you're talking about a guy, I don't think he's going to come in and be Luka Doncic or he's going to be James Harden, but as a second unit instant offense kind of guy, he has the irrational confidence and the scoring ability and the tough shot making ability, I think, to contribute on the NBA level. So he's a guy that may not get drafted or will be end of the second round, that I think will be on a team's rotation next season.
Yeah, Austin Reaves. I didn't get to watch a bunch of Gonzaga, but out of Oklahoma. But once I saw him torch the Zags in that second round matchup, I ended up doing a lot more homework on him. And yeah, I agree. I know he's a crafty player, man. Yeah, the shooting numbers were a little concerning because you kind of feel like in the NBA, like you said, the usage rate's not going to be the same. So he's not going to be able to just pick apart people in pick and roll. But if he can shoot the way he did at Wichita and combine some of those ball skills he showed, he's got really good length for the position. He's not afraid, and like you said, he's an aggressive player. So I like him, and I think that if he's drafted in the second round, or if even he's an undrafted free agent kind of guy, he's a guy I think could make a roster for sure.
I texted you. We talked about him months ago, and I was like, he's gonna be a great TBT player, to the basketball tournament. Given the way he plays, like, I don't know if that's gonna work at the next level. But I also texted you yesterday. We were talking about Austin Reaves. We weren't talking about Austin Reaves. We were talking about another guy, but we were talking about Josh Giddey. And I asked you, who's better, Austin Reaves or Josh Giddey? I'm not as high necessarily on Josh Giddey. I know Giddey's 6'8", but when it comes to who has a more advanced offensive game, I would almost lean Austin Reaves in terms of his ability to score the basketball. But yeah, no, I also loved how the Big 12 was so deep at the guard position this year. And for him, it was a gauntlet. One game you're going up against Cade Cunningham, who's a great defender. Next game you're going up against Davion Mitchell and Jared Butler. Next game you're going against Marcus Garrett. It was a tough next game.
McBride's in that. McBride's in that.
Yeah,
in that
McBride's in the conference.
Yeah.
Mac McClung. I mean, it was a tough cover every night for Austin Reaves, but he made it a tough cover for them as well.
Yeah, exactly. He gave as much as he got, as they say. So. Yeah, he's definitely a player I think to keep an eye on as well. The other guy I want to talk about on my sleeper list here, Kendall, I've been really high on this guy, Sandro. Forgive me for trying to pronounce his last name, Mamukelashvili.
Mamukelashvili.
Okay, yeah, not too bad there. I know a lot of people like to just go with Mamu, so I'm gonna go with Mamu, Seton Hall, power forward, center, 6'11". And to me, we talk about these players that may be kind of the inspiration from Nikola Jokic, the NBA MVP. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Nikola Jokic, but to me, that inspiration you see in this guy's game. He's an excellent ball handler, and he's again a true 6'10", 6'11" type of big man.
Like he's a top 1% ball handler at the big spot.
Kendall, again, advanced statistics. This guy was in the 96th percentile in PNR, not as the big man, as the ball handler. I mean, you want to talk about 96th percentile in points per possession,
and not amongst bigs.
Yes, not among big men, among all players. That includes Cade Cunningham, all players. Um, and a lot of volume. This isn't, we had 5 plays. Like, we're talking about like 80 possessions, I think, where this is the kind of production he was having. And while you may look at the overall offensive numbers and say, okay, the shooting numbers are a little good. They're good to okay. They're not like, they don't wow you. Again, when you add that the passing to his efficiency numbers, they go back to that elite 85, 90 percentile clip when it comes to him as an offensive player. He's really strong, so when he gets downhill, he's a load to handle. But as I said, because of his passing ability, that makes him dangerous. Because then when you try to crowd him, when he gets into the paint, he finds open shooters, he finds cutters. He's gonna kill people big men trying to guard him who are not used to having a guy with those kind of skills or picking the ball off the court. I've rarely seen him in the first round. I do get it because he brings you zero defensive ability, really. Like, he's not going to rim protect. He can't really guard anybody but fives, probably. So there's a problem with that. And I think that, his shooting numbers in terms of his three-point shot dipped a little bit from junior to senior year. I think he'll be a better shooter in the NBA. I think that a lot of that had to do with him taking much more of a load for Seton Hall, for a team that lost a lot of guys, and he was basically doing everything for them. But you want to talk about one of the more skilled big men in this draft, and maybe in the last 5 years in terms of draft. I mean, he's right at the top of the list. So I think that if this guy, I look at him as a second round pick. You get him, I think that could be a steal.
It can be, My question with Mamu is again, we know he's not Nikola Jokic, but just for conversation's sake, is he Nikola Jokic or is he Boris Diaw? What's his offensive? What's his scoring?
If he's Boris Diaw, if he's Boris Diaw, I'm getting that in the second round. That's a great pick. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying the guy's an all-star, but again, when we talk about these steals, a lot of times people are all looking for the all-stars. You're trying to look for a guy who could be a 10-year, 15-year vet, especially talking about late first round, early second round, or even late in the second round. And that's where I'm seeing this guy, is mostly second round. And I'm saying he looks like he has a skill level of a guy who should be playing in the NBA for a long time. So if I get that kind of guy in the second round,
6'11",
and that's what I was gonna say too. Boris Diaw was 6'8", 6'9". This guy is 6'11", and
he's a skill set.
Right.
Maybe not as good a passer, but the ball handling is all there. So yeah,
and he might be as good a passer. I don't know. I watched the film. This guy can make any pass. He
can make the passes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I think he'll work on. I think he'll be more consistent as a shooter than he has been. So I'm not as concerned about that aspect because he's shown he can hit shots, and teams were scared of his jump shot. Yes, he's a good free throw shooter, and teams were scared of his jump shot. They were running out on him, and that allowed him to attack closeouts well. So they know he can shoot, which is why perhaps maybe he didn't shoot as well as he should have. So, but no, I think Mamu's a really good player, and again, the second round team gets him. That's going to be crazy that he would have fell that far.
The next guy I'm going to the ACC. I have 2 ACC guys coming up, but this ACC guy is out of Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm going to go with Trey Murphy, forward out of UVA. He transferred from Rice prior to his time at UVA, but I think Trey Murphy, he's a guy that right now is projected to go late first round. He's not a guy that no one's ever heard of as a draft prospect, but to me, he seems like somebody that should be drafted in the top. It's certainly the lottery. Certainly, I'm shocked that he's not considered a lottery prospect. You can make a case for him as a top 10 guy in this draft. I think, given what he does functionally, I think we're making the same mistake that I and others made with Sadiq Bey last year, and we're worrying too much about what he can't do and not what he does well. And he shoots the ball better than I would argue maybe anybody in this draft, other than maybe Corey Kispert. Corey Kispert obviously is much more versatile with his shot ability, with his shooting ability. His shot versatility is much better than someone like Trey Murphy. But when it comes to the corner three or the catch and shoot three, Trey Murphy is as good as anyone in this draft. He's 6'9", he can defend at a high level, but beyond his shooting ability, because if all he could do is shoot, and even if all he could do is defend, then maybe I could make a case that I'm not willing to draft that guy in the lottery or draft a guy in the top 20. But I think he has the framework to be better than just a 3-and-D. Like, I don't want to throw out the name Brandon Ingram as a comp, but I think there is a bit of Brandon Ingram to his potential. When you talk about, He flashes a handle at times. He flashes the ability to score in isolation situations off the dribble. He can beat you. He can beat bigs to the basket in switches and mismatches. He's not afraid to finish at the rim or finish above the rim. To me, again, not to say he doesn't have weaknesses, but to me, I think at the NBA level, he goes to a team that needs shooting or needs spacing. I think he's a high level floor spacer from day one, and he can hold his own defensively, because that tends to be the question sometimes with guys that are shooters. Chris Duarte, the guy we talked about, his defense comes and goes. Trey Murphy, that defense, he's gonna hold his own day one. On an NBA level defensively, he can guard 1 through 4. I think fine at the next level. So yeah, to me, that's a guy I'm looking at as a guy that should be drafted in the lottery, that will likely be, end of the first round. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets drafted higher than people think he's going to go as of today.
I kind of agree with that. I think there's a chance that we see these mock drafts and then we say, hey, why didn't this guy get drafted higher? Then you see the guy get drafted where you think he should have. Murphy feels like he could be that kind of player because again, we talking about a guy with 6'9" with his kind of consistent shooting ability.
Think about the guy you liked a couple years ago, Cam Johnson.
And that's exactly I was about to say. To me, this guy sounds like Cam Johnson, but a much better defender. So and again, that was a great point because Cam Johnson. I told you I loved the guy. I really thought he was a lottery pick, and nobody was putting him in the lottery. And where did he end up? In the lottery.
Yes.
Murphy to me could be very similar in that regard. You mentioned those other guys. I also look at a guy like DeAndre Hunter as a potential comp for him as well. A guy who played at Virginia,
another UVA, and that's what I love about him is also the maturity of playing at UVA and being, well coached defensively, and being able to play your role. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I'm missing with a guy like him. Again, we've seen it in years past.
To me, I'm telling you, I think it's just sometimes I think with a lot of these guys, it's just team success. Like again, DeAndre Hunter. I don't think if he wasn't the 4th pick if his team doesn't win that championship, and that's ridiculous. Like that shouldn't matter in a way. Like it matters to some degree, but like it shouldn't be like you are who your game is your game. Yeah. So like, and I think Hunter was better than obviously Murphy, but like Murphy is a similar player. I don't know how you go from 4 at Hunter to Murphy. You're talking about late first round or in the early 20s or late teens. Like that. Yeah. That doesn't add up to me. So that's. Yeah. So, like, again, sometimes it's just how your team played or the school you go to, and that a lot of times can dictate where you go. The last guy I want to talk about here, and for me, Kendall, you always know, I'm always looking at those guys who were highly recruited coming out of high school who, for maybe because of their school or because of whatever reason, they kind of got lost in the shuffle when it came to the NBA radar. They weren't a one-and-done guy or a guy who came out after their second year, but then resurfaced when it's time for them to enter the NBA draft as an upperclassman. To me, the guy that fits the bill this year is Charles Bassey from Western Kentucky. He was one of the highest recruits to ever go to that school. He was an extremely productive player, though the team never went to the tournament or made a deep run. They did have some pretty good wins throughout his career there. The one thing I love about Charles Bassey is the guy runs the floor extremely well. Big men, you can get a lot of easy baskets just rim running end to end. He has shown the ability that he can do that and do that at a high level. He's a potentially tenacious finisher around the basket. I mean, he goes up with 2 hands and 2 feet, and he finishes strong. He's a lob threat on pick and roll. He's a high-level offensive rebounder. And, I know this isn't a comp video, but when I watched him play, he reminded me a lot of Clint Capella because of his ability to keep the ball alive. He averaged about 11 rebounds a game. He averaged over 3 blocks, so the rim protection is elite. And, again, I just saw him outworking people. Some of this stuff I feel like when I saw when things didn't go right for him, a lot of it to me seemed just like him maybe trying to do things he can't do. So he's taking threes. He's not really there yet. The shot is not terrible, and he made some, but they put him in a lot of pick and pops, and I think probably way more than he ever should have been at that point in his career. He may grow into that, but I think the NBA they won't even ask him to do that. He had a lot of one-on-one situations. Again, I don't think anybody in the NBA is asking him to beat a guy one-on-one from 20 feet out. The things that he's great at, which is, again, rim running, going up for lobs, attacking the offensive glass, he can do that in the NBA. Like, there's no reason why he can't do any of those things. And the defense is, again, so strong. Opponents in the post only shot 34% from on field goals with him guarding them. So I like him. You know, big men is always kind of tough to tell, and a lot of times they end up being a little bit late bloomers. But I think Bassey has a chance to be potentially a starting NBA center because of the skill set he already has, which is a hard work ethic, elite rim protection, and a great feat in terms of getting out in transition and running.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, when you're talking about doing, finding sleepers in the draft, big men are a good place to find because the big spot nowadays is, it's not. I don't want to say it's not I don't want to say it's easier, but it's been simplified in terms of what NBA centers are asked to do. So,
and because of that, their value is lower. So what you'll have a lot of these guards and these wings go very high, and you'll have a lot. If you ever watch an NBA draft, the second round is filled with all these big men from Europe, from mid-major schools, guys from Africa, guys who are development guys, and then these guys appear 3 years later, and you're like, who is this guy? And you're like, this guy was drafted. Like, you watched him get drafted, you forgot about him.
Yeah, the 2018 draft, another Western Kentucky guy, Mitchell Robinson, Robert Williams, who I mentioned earlier in the video, Daniel Gafford, those guys, they may not be better, one for one. Some of them, they are better than some of the guys at the top, but they're probably almost certainly better value guys than the guys that were drafted in the top 10 in the bigs, in Ayton, Bagley, and Bamba, and Wendell Carter, what's the difference between Daniel Gafford and Wendell Carter? They're different players, but I'd much rather have that guy in the second round than, use a top 10 pick on a guy like Wendell Carter. So, yeah, I think Charles Bassey could be the next in that line. You talk about the talent level is absolutely there. It's been there since high school. He got buried in he went to a spot, as Jeff Goodman likes to say, the smart money is on Rick Stansbury in recruiting. But he went to a tough spot in Western Kentucky where they weren't terrible. He had talent around him because Rick Stansbury gets talent, but it wasn't the place where he probably should have went in terms of surrounding himself with the best guard play to get him the ball in the right spots and not have to do too much. But when he gets to the NBA level, it's going to be almost easier for him because he's playing with much better players. So put him in a spot with a great point guard, and I think he'll be effective. The last guy that I'm going to talk about in this video, staying in the ACC, we're going to Duke, and I'm going to go with Matthew Hurt, big man out of Duke, forward out of Duke, who you talk about big recruits. He was a top 10 guy coming out of consensus. Had a rough freshman season. Duke, some people thought he was going to transfer, but stuck it out for sophomore year, and developed into the player a lot of people thought he would be when he got to Duke in terms of being an 18-point scorer, an exceptional shooter of the basketball. It was on a bad, for Duke standards, bad basketball team, but he was the only reason they were decent was because of Matthew Hurt was able to get them offensively. When it comes to his projection at the NBA level, because of his skill set offensively, being able to shoot the basketball off the catch, off movement, again, spot situations in the corner, I think he's going to be deadly. But not just his ability to shoot from outside, but I think his overall offensive package when it comes to scoring in the post, scoring in the mid post, scoring in the mid range. That's really what he's going to give you. He's going to be just an offensive.
Yeah. He comes in the game, you're saying, yo, get ready to shoot. Yeah, he's a guy you come off the bench and say, get ready to shoot. Be aggressive.
He's a different player than this guy, but I think functionally in terms of what we saw, it's going to be a similar kind of conundrum. In terms of what's going to make or break Matthew Hurt on the next level is going to be how good is he offensively to make up for how porous he's going to be defensively.
Yeah, because he's going to get killed by these guards. Yeah,
he's going to be one of the worst defensive players in the NBA when he steps on the court. So how good will he be offensively make up for that? Or if he's a good offensive player, how much can he improve defensively in terms of getting stronger or getting quicker laterally to make up for the fact that he already is a really bad defender, but he can give you something offensively? It's a similar conundrum right now to a guy like Jabari Parker, who he's a different player than Jabari Parker, but I think the Celtics,
player, but the conundrum is the same.
This past season, had that same, and a lot of teams that have had Jabari Parker the last couple of years have had that same question: is what does he give us offensively? We know he can play offensively, and he can help us offensively, but how much is he going to hurt us defensively? And is it worth having him if he hurts us that much defensively? And that's going to be the question with Matthew Hurt. But I think his value as a floor spacer, as a jump shooter, but then also as a guy that can score on mismatches in the post, and is just an overall tough shot maker. That to me seems like a guy that will last in the NBA. But he's gonna have to improve defensively because there are too many games where Duke lost. Not as bad as some of the other guys on the team played, or as well as he may have played offensively, they lost because he couldn't guard a chair.
He's seeking him.
Teams just found a way to exploit that.
Her defense is the elephant in the room when you're asking, can he be a functional NBA player? And the offense, you see why. I mean, again, the offense, he's a very good shooter, and he's not just like a guy who just stands on the corner and shoots threes. I mean, he could score in the post, he could hit fit turnarounds. I mean, he's a very good scorer, especially when it comes against shooting the basketball. So for that reason, and because he's 6'9", he's a legit power forward. That kind of floor spacing teams are dying for, and he's a legit floor spacer. The question mark is can he get decent enough defensively where he's not gonna kill you? And I don't know the answer to that. I know he's not that good right now, but guys can get better. Guys you're not who you are at 20 years old, who you're gonna be for the rest of your career. There are some weaknesses that you see. It's very unlikely given the physical limitation that this will ever become a strength. But can you at least be respectable? Can you at least be solid? That's possible. I think when it comes to a lot of guys defensively. So is it possible for her? Yes. But that's a big hurdle because he's starting from basically zero to me when it comes to him defensively. And it's again, a lot of this is always about the area you're playing in, right? Like when I was doing my work on Hurt, like the comparison I wrote down was Keith Van Horn. And Keith Van Horn was fine in the NBA when he played. He wasn't as good as the number 2 pick in the draft, but like he had a very good NBA career. He wasn't that great defensively, but he was guarding slow power forwards most of the time. Like it didn't really matter that much. Like in this NBA, like the power forward is being switched on guards all the time. Like he's gonna be in space, playing in space against guys attacking him all the time. I don't know if Keith Van Horn would have survived playing in this kind of NBA where he's constantly in space against aggressive guards. They played him at the 4 back then, and then he actually ended up playing the 3 when they got Kenyon Martin, and there's no way he's guarding threes, So it's a different NBA for Matthew Hurt than the NBA some of these other guys who have played before him have gone up against. So the challenges are different, and I think that's a problem. But the offensive talent is certainly there, and if you could find a way to get him to play some defense, you may be able to get a lot out of him because he, again, his floor spacing is serious, and again, he's beyond just a floor spacer. He can score out of the post, and he can hit tough shots in the mid range too. He's a really good offensive player.
I've seen a lot of people comp him to T.J. Leaf. It's the classic. It's like the R.J. Hampton, Dante Exum, where it's like he kind of looks like the guy. So, that's what we're going with. But
I think he shoots better than Leaf.
I think he's a much better offensive player than T.J.
Yeah,
I think he's a better shooter. I think he's more advanced down low. Maybe not even advanced, but just more productive.
Yeah. I think he's more productive. I agree.
So again, TJ Leaf didn't work. I think in part because he was so kind of raw and basic offensively. But if TJ Leaf was a 40% 3-point shooter, I think he'd have a role in the NBA. But so yeah, that. It can go. I mean, he could wind up the way of T.J. Leaf, but I think about Ryan Anderson, as a guy who offensively, and look, Ryan Anderson, out of the league. I don't know if it's age or if it's the game has passed him by in terms of his ability to defend, but Ryan Anderson,
he found a niche. Yeah, he found a way.
He found a niche as a higher level shooter, and being able to still give you the requisite big man stuff, being able to rebound a little bit, being able to defend bigs a little bit. The difference is that Ryan Anderson is much bigger than Hurt, much stronger. Hurt is going to have to get, I think, stronger if he's going to play that kind of a role. Because right now he was really skinny when he got to Duke. He's bigger, but the core strength still isn't there. Which is why you watch him against North Carolina. Garrison Brooks just ate his lunch. There's a lot of Garrison Brookses he's gonna have to guard in the NBA. If he's gonna play some five, which he may have to because or do you want him guarding Kevin Durant, or do you want him guarding Giannis or some of the Jason Tatum, some of the guys that be playing small ball 4 that he's gonna have to guard? So that's the conundrum.
Yeah, no question about it. Who are some guys that we talk about when it comes to that we didn't have here, but you also would look at as sleepers in this draft?
Yeah, a guy I thought in our March Madness preview videos was Quentin Grimes out of Houston, who I thought who I think is going to be a really good player in the NBA. A lot of people have been mocked at the back of the first round, mostly second round actually, and he's a guy I would draft in the late first round. I think could help a playoff team 3-and-D with a chance to be, I think, a 15 to 20 point scorer also. Sharif Cooper is a guy. I don't really consider Sharif Cooper a sleeper.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say. I feel like, everybody's talking about him. I don't know if I call him a sleeper.
Yeah, everybody talks about him, but just in terms of where the general consensus is on where he will end up around the league, which is in the back of the first round, it's crazy to me. To me, that's the guy I'm drafting in the top 10 to 12 picks. But, I understand the deficiencies as a jump shooter. Defensive upside is very limited, but, I think people are thinking too hard. We'll talk about Cooper at a future time in other videos. But yeah, no, he's a guy that similar to Trey Murphy, where it's like back to the first round to me is crazy. He should be in the lottery.
I think Deshaun Highland is definitely a guy. I know you talked about him in one of our videos as well. It's unfortunate he didn't get to play in the tournament, which we thought that was a tournament video, because he's an electric scorer, deep range, really good handle, and an aggressive player. And I think that he's a guy. You talk about these combo guards or Lou Williams types. He's definitely in that line. So I think he's a player to look at. I also think Ayo Dosunmu is becoming, I think, a little bit of a sleeper, because even though he was a very, very, very productive college player, we haven't really heard about him being among the top guards, even though by most accounts he was maybe the best point guard in college basketball. But I still like his size and his frame and his defense, decision making, and some of the sloppiness he has to pick up on and tighten up. But when he gets downhill, he gets in transition, he is a nightmare. So I think that he's kind of being a little bit underrated as well. And I'll give you one European guy, Rokas Jokubaitis. Hopefully I got that pronunciation right. Another point guard. Reminds me a lot of Beno Udrih. Left-handed, really good mid-range jumper. Shout out to Beno Udrih. I got the comps on deck, man. Really good in the mid-range. Really good range on the deep three as well. Good passer, good live ball passer as well. He's a very advanced pick and roll player. He's not gonna be a guy who really finish in the paint, but he's a really good shooter.
Yeah, no, I like Rokas as well. I'm still dying about the Beno Udrih comp just because.
Why are you laughing at Beno Udrih?
Yeah, look, his time at the Knicks was there was a lot of laughing. There was a lot to laugh about.
Look, man, we off that, man. The Knicks made the playoffs. Tibbs is coach of the year. Randall, bad postseason, but most improved player. We're not thinking about the bad. I'm thinking about Udrih when he's playing for the Spurs, when he's winning NBA championships.
Yeah, he's playing for the Spurs. That
Beno Udrih. He's played pretty good in Sacramento too.
Yeah, exactly. If we're sticking on European players, a guy who's coming from Spain, Santi Aldama, is a guy played at Loyola Maryland. Averaged 20 and 11 in the Patriot League for a team that was terrible. You look at their record; they were one of the worst teams in one of the worst mid-major teams in the country. But it was not because of Santi. He's an excellent shooter. He can shoot off movement at 6'10", 6'11". Can finish above the rim. It really raises questions. How did he end up at Loyola Maryland, of all places? Because it's a real Tommy Lloyd kind of job. You feel like a guy should have been at Gonzaga with his skill set, his athleticism. I'm kind of upset when I saw he entered the draft. I was kind of upset because I was hoping he would, enter the transfer portal
Yeah,
because
and go to
he's the kind of guy
yeah.
you want your team to transfer to. You're like,
I know exactly.
you have him, go to Memphis or something like that. But no, he's a guy that may get drafted at the end of the first round, or not first round, end of the second round, in the draft. I think he will get drafted given his given his talent level. The team will take a chance on him, and he has a lot of film playing for the Spanish national team on the youth level, and he excelled on that level as well. So Aldama's a guy that not a lot of people are familiar with, given played at Loyola Maryland, but I think he's going to be a very good player as well.
Also, look out for Nehemiah Keita from Utah State. Again, looking at for these bigs who are athletic, who can block shots. I've seen him all over the draft. I've seen him also undrafted in places.
Keita,
you can't teach that guy's hot size. You can't teach that guy's size and athleticism.
Shot
Definitely,
ability.
yeah, his shot blocking ability is ridiculous. He's definitely very raw offensively. But again, I'm not asking him to be Kareem on the block. Like, again, set a screen, go up to the rim, be big. He does that well already. He's a guy to look out for as well.
I think Keita is purely a medical red flag, man. Like, when you watch him play, just gangly, you worried. Every time I watch him, I'm just worried this guy's gonna get hurt the way he runs. It's Miles Turner kind of had that thing, and he's been fine for the most part. But Keita's already had an injury in the past. You see he wears the knee braces, but given his ability, strictly off of his ability, is certainly an NBA player.
Yeah.
Again, talking about what the big staffs do nowadays, he does it at a high level. Again, the rebounding, the shot blocking, the athleticism,
and the fact that he's so athletic, despite the knee issues he's had. I mean, it tells you, man, he can stay healthy, and he can get past that. Watch out, but bigs is always a very risk. But if he stays healthy, he might be an undrafted free agent kind of guy that ends up being a difference maker if he can stay on the court.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm so excited for summer league, because I think there are going to be guys that we talked about on this list where they're going to start playing on summer league. They're going to start playing in summer league, and people are going to be like, "Who's this guy?" So I'm so glad the summer league is back.
There are going to be guys on last year's list that we haven't seen all year that are going to be playing in the summer league. You're going to be like, "Oh, that guy's technically in the NBA," or he was drafted by an NBA team last year. So we had no summer league. So I'm excited just for summer league to be back. I don't think we'll be back there this year, but when I'm able to get back, when you're able to get back there, I know we can't wait to cover it as well. But thank you guys so much for checking out this video of our NBA draft sleepers for the class of 2021. For Kendall, I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace.